Hello everybody and welcome to an Elder Scrolls Online Guides video with me, Sherman. Today we are going to be talking about guild skills. Now if you don't know what guild skills are, these are skills that you unlock through doing certain things like dolmens and killing Daedra and stuff will unlock the Fighters Guild. Finding special lore books will unlock the Mages Guild, and doing dungeons and completing their stories or doing the Undaunted dailies will unlock Undaunted. So let's get in here and talk about those. Now, I would talk about the Dark Brotherhood and the Thieves Guild, but they're really more passive related, and as you can see, it just has things to do with what they do, with what they're involved in, like assassination. And it only works on certain NPCs and stuff, and then the Thieves Guild is all about stealing and everything. So it's not really as beneficial as like Fighters Guild, Mages Guild, and Undaunted are. So let's get started with Fighters Guild. Now, the Fighters Guild, of course, has an ultimate, and the ultimate is Dawnbreaker. Now, Dawnbreaker does damage when on the initial hit, and then damage over time, allowing you to do greater damage based on your max stamina. Now, all Fighter Guild abilities are based on stamina and not magicka. Next is their two morphs, which is Flawless Dawnbreaker, passively increases your weapon damage. So as long as it's a slotted, you get 5% more weapon damage on top of that. The next one is deals more damage and enemies are knocked down for 2.5 seconds. That's a really good one, and that's Dawnbreaker Smiting. This is a really good tank one, to be honest, because it's cost a little bit, and it allows you to knock enemies down, but it's not one I would use when I was fighting a boss. I'd use more of a defensive one fighting a boss, and this one I was fighting trash, because you can fire this off quite a bit as a tank, to be honest. Next is Silver Bolts. Now this is one of the active abilities, and what it does is it fires a Dawnguard Vampire Hunter's crossbow bolt to strike an enemy for X amount of damage and reduce their movement speed by 40% for 6 seconds. Now a lot of people don't use this, but it is a really powerful ability. It does cost quite a bit of stamina, so just be prepared. But the thing is that it offers some great potential stuff. The next one is Silver Shards. It hits an additional 5 enemies, so if you're not using a bow, you can use this to hit 5 enemies and do 5, hit them all for that amount of damage. So it's the one thing I want to tell you about Fighters Guild. Fighters Guild is made for tanking. In a lot of ways it's made for tanks, but it's also made for DPS as well, and you can get some stuff. Silver Leash, though, deals more damage and activate again to pull you to the target. So this is a really good gap closer. It's also a good way to get some damage off and then move to the target. So next is Circle of Protection, and this one gives your group 8% damage reduction. So, and it also gives you stamina recovery. So this is really good if you're playing, up front and stuff. It does cost a lot of stamina or stamina, but you can get reduced cost, and I'll show you how here in a second. So this one, if you have it equipped, you're going to get stamina recovery. You're going to get this as long as you have it on the ground. It's a really good thing to have, especially if the rest of your group doesn't have the ability to get that 8% damage reduction. It does help, because most of your people in your group are going to have anywhere between 10, 15, 20% damage reduction, depending on how they have their champion points set up and depending on if they're playing the meta or not. So you can get 18%, 28%, it doesn't matter. It gives you more, and some classes also get minor protection. Like the Templar gets minor protection for one of their buffs for their resistances and stuff, and that's restoring focus. If they're standing in that, they can get minor protection as well, but they have to have the morph for it. Next is Turn Undead. Now this is a really fun one to mess with Daedra and Undead with, and werewolves. You set it down and they'll run away in fear. So it reduces the amount of damage incoming for 4 seconds, and then they'll turn and come back on you. But it gives you a good way to mitigate some damage for 4 seconds, so that way you can get things set so you can start doing damage on enemies. Now, Circle of Protection does work in dungeons really well, but I prefer Ring of Preservation, honestly. And even though it has a high stamina cost, you can get this reduced quite a bit, because you got to remember, 20% of this number is greater, so it's going to reduce it more. When it's a smaller number, it's not going to reduce it as much. So the more you can reduce the cost of this circle, the better. Next we have Expert Hunter. And remember how I told you guys you can get that reduced cost and fighter abilities? Well, this is one of the ways you can do that, but not with the initial one. The initial one gives you a way to expose enemies that are stealth and stuff, but it also gives you, while slotted, Major Savagery, which increases your weapon critical by 10%. So this is a great one to have on your bar, just to have slotted, unless you're in Cyrodiil. Then you can use it to find those hidden enemies around the area. Really great thing. Next is Evil Hunter. Now this is the one where you can reduce the cost of fighter abilities, and you have to activate the ability to get that reduced cost, and it reduces the stamina cost of fighter abilities by 25%. So less stamina. So it gives you a big chunk of reduced cost, and it's a really good one to run if you're playing a tank that needs that extra ring of protection, because you're going to get that extra weapon critical, and you can get that ring of protection down at a cheaper cost. So, I mean, you got to cast this, then that, so you're still looking at a pretty decent chunk of stuff, but it's a really good thing to have. And the next one is Camouflaged Hunter. Now this one, criticals from crouch grant minor berserk, increasing your attack damage by 8%, well, minor berserk, not major, for 5 seconds. So it gives you 8% more damage when you're crouched. So it's a pretty good little deal there. No offense. Now, like I said, a lot of these do cost a lot of stamina, but you've got to make a choice. Next is Trap Beast. A lot of people run Trap Beast, and the reason they do it is because when you set the trap, it gives you minor force, which increases your critical damage by 12%, so that your criticals hits do 12% more damage, and a lot of people like this. Now, the traps take 1.5 seconds to arm and last for 1 minute. Now, they like rearming trap, or they like most of the time. Now, and that's the first morph. And this one, traps rearm once after firing. So once you set them down and they fire off the first time, they get a rearming, and they'll fire a second time. So there is that with them. Next is Lightweight Beast Trap. And this one can be placed up to 28 meters away. So you can set this one really far away. And it's pretty cool, especially in dungeons, because you can set it right at the boss, right in front of the boss, hit him with a taunt, and pull him into it. So it's a really good, effective thing. Next is Intimidating Presence. Now this is a passive, and it works on NPCs, and it also reduces the cost of fighter abilities by 20%. So these things are going to get reduced by 20%, and on top of that another 25%. So this is a really good one to have. But it helps you in NPC conversations when you're talking to certain people, and it says you need Intimidate or whatever. That's the Intimidate that you get. Next is Slayer. Now this one's really cool because it increases your weapon damage by 3% for each fighter guild ability slotted. Now if you're playing a Sork, they get 2% weapon damage from having a Storm ability slotted. So if you have this and one of these other, you have that and like the Expert Hunter on your bar, and then on your other bar you have something else, you can actually get that 5% weapon damage added to your character. So that's another way you can get another 5% if needed. Next is Banish the Wicked. Grants 9 extra ultimate when killing undead, Daedra, and werewolves. This one is one I would suggest everyone unlocks, because whenever you kill an undead, Daedra, or werewolf, which is what you mostly fight in dungeons, is Daedra and undead, you gonna build ultimate really fast. Next is Guild Tracker, and this one is pretty cool. Your fighter guild abilities that deal damage deal an additional 20% damage to undead, werewolves, and Daedra. So that means any of these abilities that you do use that deal damage, you're gonna get 20% or 20% more or damage against undead and Daedra. I usually run with my tank. If you guys have seen her, she's a Templar tank. I do run Silver Shards every once in a while, and that's because I like that extra damage that it can put out, and that's 20% more damage that this ability does. So it's super powerful, no offense. And that's why a lot of people run Rearming Trap, is because it does hit for a lot of damage. Dawnbreaker will hit for a lot more damage because of that. Next is this one, which is Bounty Hunter, and it allows you to accept bounty quests from the Fighters Guild in Cyrodiil. Now this allows you to run a daily quest in Cyrodiil doing Fighters Guild stuff. And it's a really great thing to get, to be honest, because you get good experience, and you also get other things from playing in Cyrodiil, that you can do the dolmens in Cyrodiil and everything else. So it's a pretty interesting thing. Next up is the Mage's Guild. Now I do like the Mage's Guild abilities. First off, we get Meteor, which is its ultimate. Now you do have to unlock these things. It says right here, rank 10. So you have to rank all the way up to get these ultimates. But it calls a comet down from the constellations to blast an enemy, dealing X flame damage to the enemy, all enemies in the area, and knocking them back. After impact, enemies in the target area take Y flame damage every 10 seconds. This is really good if you're playing a flame tank, no offense, or a flame caster, because it gives you a greater damage potential. But then you get two others. You get two more. So you get Ice Comet, which does ice damage. Now, the great thing about this is now it deals increased damage that is now cold and snares. So this is a really good one for tanks. If you're playing like an ice tank or something, this is a really good one for you because you get that snare and it gives you a chance of doing some extra damage. And especially on trash pulls or trash and stuff, this works great because it also slows them down. The next one, though, is Shooting Star. Now, this is what a lot of DPS use. And the reason why is because grants ultimate for each enemy hit. You can rebuild ultimate really fast with this. So you call down a comet that does flame damage. After impact, enemies in the area take 457 flame damage every second for 10 seconds. It's actually more than that depending on your max magicka, but it gives you 12 ultimate for each enemy hit with it. So it's a lot of ultimate you can build really fast off of trash. Next is Mage Light. Now this is like a lot like that Expert Hunter. It gives you major proficiency, which increases your spell critical, but it allows you to reveal stealth enemies out in Cyrodiil. It's a really great ability to have on your bar, and it does offer even better things. Inner Light also increases your max magicka by 2%. So you get that, but there's another thing that gives you another % of increased magicka as well, and we'll get to that in a second. Then you get Radiant Light. Radiant Light gives you the major proficiency, but it also reduces the cost and increases the radius to reveal. You also prevent the stun and reduce the damage from stealth attacks while slotted. So if you have this and you're in Cyrodiil, you're going to reduce the damage that you take from stealth enemies. So it's really beneficial to have that when you're in Cyrodiil, just saying. Next is Entropy. Now I do like to use Entropy on my Templar, because on my Templar magic caster, because of the fact it gives me increased sorcery. I also use it on my Nightblade because of the increased magic sorcery, and it does a heal. So bind an enemy with chaotic magic, dealing X damage over 12 seconds and restoring so much health to you, an additional Y health every 6 seconds. So it hits you with a heal, and then it gives you a heal over time. So this is really good actually for a healer, because you're not going to be hitting yourself with a lot of heals. Most of the time you're going to be hitting other people, and this gives you a way of healing yourself. It's also good for Sorks or anyone who doesn't, who wants to get an extra heal and they do a lot of magic damage. It's a really good one to get, and it's cheap, really cheap. The first morph is Degeneration. Your light and heavy attacks against the target have a chance to heal you. So this is another beneficial one you can do. And your light and heavy attacks have a 15% chance to heal you for 100% of the damage caused. So it's a really good one. The next one, while slotted, your max health is increased by 8%. This is really good for a tank in light armor because it gives you that increased health. Now, if you want more health, you can actually put on heavy armor and get even more health. But this is a great ability for a tank to use, because you want that major sorcery so you can do extra spell damage. Next is Fire Rune. A lot of people don't understand how well this thing is. You inscribe a rune of cosmic fire on the earth and blast an enemy entering the target area for X flame damage. So if you drop it down, it's basically like a fire trap. You set it down, they walk into it, boom, they catch on fire. Now there's two morphs. Enemy is knocked in the air and stunning them for 4 seconds, so you get that knockback and that stun. The next one is a Scalding Rune, and enemies take fire damage over time. So they don't just take the damage initially, they also take damage over time. This is a really powerful ability. No offense, but it is. Then you get Equilibrium. Now a lot of people don't like to use Equilibrium, and I can understand why. But you barter with Oblivion to trade power, sacrificing health in exchange for magicka. Now the exchange prevents you from healing yourself, but what it does, you can still be healed, but it does give you magicka back. And there's two morphs, Spell Symmetry and Balance. Now Spell Symmetry reduces the cost of your next spell by 25%, if activated within 5 seconds. So once you cast this, within 5 seconds, you can cast a spell at 25% reduced cost. The other one adds physical and spell resistance. Now this is a great one if you want to get Major Ward and Major Resolve, and you don't want to use your class. If your class doesn't offer you it, like a Nightblade doesn't offer you it in light armor, you can take this. You're still going to get healing effect. You're just not going to get that. And you do have to use the ability to get that Major Ward and Major Resolve, and it lasts for 4 seconds, but you can increase the duration of that down below. So next up is the passives. The first one is Persuasive Will. Now, if you're ever talking to an NPC and it says to persuade, blah, 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 this is how you do it. You persuade them with this ability. Next is Mage Adept. Reduces magicka and health cost of mage abilities by 15%. So not only that, but you get another, 15% from your own armor if you're wearing light armor. So you get a 30% in total reduced cost to all these abilities. So you get a bigger reduced cost. Next, increases duration of mage guild abilities by 20%. So this actually goes up to 20 seconds. So it's a really good, cheap way to get Major Resolve and Major Ward if you can't get it another way, or if you don't want to use an armor ability. You can take this. Now, like I said, the exchange prevents you from being healed for 4 seconds is all. But you can also receive healing within that time frame. So I think this is 4 seconds as well, because I don't think it does go up, but I know this does go up to 20 seconds. So. And it might be even longer. This might be 20 seconds, but it's still fine. You're going to have damage shields mitigating damage. You're going to have your healer healing you. So there's no real reason why you're not going to be able to get the heals. Next one is Magicka Controller. Increases your max Magicka and Magicka regeneration by 2% for each mage guild slotted. So if you have this and you just have Inner Light, you're going to get 4% increased max Magicka if you take Inner Light instead of Radiant Light, Mage Light. So if you're doing this for PvE, you're going to get 2%, 4% in total max Magicka. Remember that. And you can get more. Now, my character that I'm working on right now is going to be a flame tank, and I'm going to take Entropy and have it on one bar. I'm going to have Radiant Light on the other, and then I'm going to have on both bars, or the Inner Light on both bars. I'm going to have Entropy, this one here, this structured Entropy, on one bar. While it's slotted, I get that 8% max health, so it will be on both bars. So I'll have both of those, and then I'm going to be using the Scalding Ruin as one of them as well on one bar. So I'm going to get extra Magicka on greater Magicka on one bar. I might just take them both, just those two, because of the kind of character I want to make, but I'm going to make a mage tank, and I'm going to use this one, the Inner Light, to get that spell critical. I'm going to take this one to give me sorcery. But also, while I have it slotted, I get that 8% max health. And then, on top of that, I get the 2% per mage build. So I get 4% max Magicka. Well, 6% max Magicka then, on top of it. So, all together, because I get 2% here, and then I get 2% for each one. So I get 6%. And I'm going to have both of them. Now, this is the one I really like. Casting a Mage's Guild ability grants Empower, increasing the damage of your next attack by 20% as long as it's activated within 5 seconds. So, if I cast my Structured Entropy to give me that major sorcery, every time I cast it, I'm going to get extra damage off of an attack. So it'll be really beneficial. And this one right here, this one that increases the max Magicka, is just going to give me those benefits. It's just a really interesting idea that I had for that build. So just showing you guys what you can get for this. Now we're going to go into the Undaunted. Now the Undaunted has some amazing abilities depending on what you do. It does not have any ultimate, but it does have some amazing abilities. We're going to start with Blood Altar, and this one conjures a fountain of blood that grants minor lifesteal. Now minor lifesteal is getting a change soon. It's going to actually give you 400 health back instead of a certain amount. And it says here, healing you for 2% of the damage done. It's going to give you 400 health back whenever you do damage in the area. So it gives both 400 health to you and your allies, healing you for 2% of the damage done. So it's going to be 400% of the 400 health per damage that you do. So it's going to be a nice way to give you a way of getting extra health. And there's two morphs, Sanguine Altar and is it Sanguine? Sanguine Altar and Overflowing Altar. The first one increases the duration. so it lasts longer. It lasts for 40 seconds. The other one increases the amount of synergy the heal does. Now, all Undaunted things have a synergy, by the way. Now, this one also, allies can also activate the blood funnel synergy to heal themselves for 40% of their max health, and anyone can use that. Now, this one gives you that synergy at an increased rate, which is 62% of their max health. So I would probably go with Overflowing Altar, personally, because of it. Next one is Trapping Web. Now, I like Trapping Web. I honestly do, because I was thinking about running this on a DK poison character. I want to make a poison build that's going to use a bow. So this will give me a way to throw out this trap, because I hurl strands of cursed spider silk to ensnare your foes, reducing their movement speed for the enemies in the target area by 50%. After 5 seconds, the web bursts into venom, dealing X poison damage to the enemies within. Now, the great thing about this is the synergy. Activate spawn broodlings. Synergy act against any snared enemy, dealing Y poison damage to them, summoning 2 spiders for 15 seconds. So it's a really cool thing. Now, the morphs you get are Shadow Silk and Tangling Web. Shadow Silk, the synergy summons a more powerful Black Widow Spire, which deals additional damage over time. And then there is the Tangling Web, which this synergy also fears the enemy. Now, I like that Shadow Silk one. I think it's going to be the one that I'm going to go with. And since it only costs 3,511, it's not going to cost me a lot to bring out. Now, this will be a great one for healers to start using, this major lifesteal one later on, especially in dungeons and trials, because it's going to give 400 health no matter what. And then whatever your healing received is going to increase that health, that 400 health, by 8%, so, or 20% or whatever, and it's going to give you more and more health based on that. So this thing can do a lot of healing for you. On top of that, you get Inner Fire. Now, this is the other taunt in the game. Now, you do have to get to rank 3 Undaunted. It does not take long to get there. And once you get it and you unlock it, you can start using it. Now, the great thing about it is the fact of what it does. Ignite fires of hate in your enemy's heart, dealing X magic damage and forcing them to attack you for 15 seconds. Now, if somebody uses the synergy, it grants a 15% chance that allies targeting this enemy can activate Radiate Synergy. Now, it's a 15% chance, dealing X or Y magic damage to the target enemy over 2 seconds and causing the target to explode for extra magic damage to nearby allies. I love this synergy. I've only seen it activated twice with me using it, and let me tell you that the amount of damage it can do is quite a bit. Now, it does have 2 morphs. It has a Magicka morph and it has a Stamina morph. The Magicka morph is Inner Rage, has increased chance to create a synergy opportunity, so it gets a 35% chance. The Inner Beast one, the ability now scales off weapon damage and max stamina at a reduced cost. Now, that's really good because you're going to have a higher stamina using this ability. It's going to cost you less, and you're going to also reduce that cost even more if you're in like light or medium armor, or if you're in heavy armor and you have a lot of stamina reduction. So there's those 2 choices. Next up is Bone Shield. Now, if you don't know what Bone Shield is, Bone Shield's basically like Blazing Shield for the Templar, except it doesn't do damage back to the enemies in its initial setup. Instead, surround yourself in a whirlwind of bones, absorbing physical damage equivalent to 30% of your max health. Now, that does increase based on your max stamina, so the higher your stamina, the more percentage that can last. I don't know why a lot of people don't know that, but it does. And all allies can activate Bone Wall synergy, absorbing damage to allies equal to 60% of their max health. The wall lasts for 10 seconds and the effects up to 4 nearby allies. This is a super powerful synergy because once you put down the Bone Wall, it lasts for 6 seconds. Now, within that 6 seconds time, if you time it right, you can get them to fire it off right at the last second, the synergy, giving everyone that extra damage shield. Now, it does have 2 morphs. It has Spike Bone Shield, and then it has Bone Surge. Now, Spike Bone Shield is the one that does damage back to the enemies, and it does 30% of the damage back to melee attackers. So any melee attackers standing nearby, they're going to take 30% extra damage. I don't know why it says melee attackers, though, because anyone standing within range, I've noticed, will take damage from this. But it returns damage to melee attackers is what it says. The next one, the synergy increases all healing received. So if you do this, everyone gets minor vitality, increasing healing received by 8% while the bone wall is up. So this one I think is a much better morph, even though this one can be really good for a tank, depending on how much direct and indirect damage they can produce for themselves. Next is Necrotic Orb. Now, a lot of people use Necrotic Orb because it's a pretty powerful thing for healers. Projectile globe of annihilation that floats forward, dealing X magic damage to nearby enemies. An ally can activate the combustion synergy, causing the orb to explode for Y magic damage or restoring Z magicka over 10 seconds, plus an additional magicka based on the number of enemies hit. So the more enemies hit, if you activate it when it goes through, like, say, 5 enemies, and you activate it, you're going to get more magicka back. The two morphs are Mystic Orb and Energy Orb. Now, Mystic Orb also restores magicka instantly when it explodes. So when it explodes, it instantly restores magicka. So you get the magicka as it goes through the enemies, and then and more over 10 seconds, plus an additional magicka based on the number of enemies hit. So you get more magicka back with this when the orb explodes. Now you get Energy Orb, which is the next morph, and this one is the one that a lot of healers use because it heals allies as it goes through. It heals them as it's going across the room, and then activating this synergy, healing themselves for Y and restoring magicka as well. Instead of doing damage, it does healing. So it's a pretty powerful thing that a lot of healers like to use. You get two passives with this tree. Now, the first one is Undaunted Command, which activating an ally's synergy restores 4% of your max health, stamina, and magicka. Now, this is why a lot of people run with these things in trials and stuff, is because it gives you this synergy here. But it's also because of the next synergy, which is Undaunted Metal, which you guys have probably heard me mention. Undaunted Metal increases your max health, stamina, and magicka by 2% per type of armor that you have equipped. So heavy, light, and medium. So you have to have one heavy, one light, one medium to get this synergy. So whatever armor type you decide to use when you get to CP 160, whether it be heavy, light, or medium, you'll wear 5 pieces of. And then you'll wear one heavy or one medium, depending on what type of, you'll wear one of each of the other types. And in total, it gives you 6% extra stat bonuses. So it gives you 2% for light, 2% for heavy, and 2% for medium. So in total, it gives you 6% max health, stamina, and magicka. And that's why a lot of people try to get this, is because of that benefit it gives you. Now remember, to unlock Undaunted, you have to play through the Undaunted weekly things after you hit level 45 to get experience, or you have to complete all the stories within the dungeon, and you have to complete the full story in order to get Undaunted experience. Otherwise, you do not get the Undaunted experience any other way. Now, it comes in smaller increments. When you just complete the stories, doing the Undaunted weeklies, you get a lot more. Or the Undaunted dailies, you get a lot more. So when you start getting Undaunted dailies, my advice, start doing them. If you have to do them in normal dungeons, do them in normal dungeons. That'll give you keys that allow you to unlock the chests that give you the shoulders for the monster sets. And it gives you a good way to start collecting some monster sets. Undaunted abilities, Mages Guild's abilities, and Fighter Guild abilities are all great abilities. To unlock Fighters Guild, like I said, you have to do dolmens, kill undead, kill werewolves, or kill Daedra to get the experience. Mages Guild, you have to find lore books in order to unlock the experience for this. And lore books are pretty hard to find, so my suggestion is to get the lore books add-on to get the Mages, so you can get the Mages Guild experience a lot quicker and a lot easier. Especially if you're pushing to get all these things unlocked. Now, myself, like I said, I am working on a character right now, a Khajiit character that's going to be a magicka tank, and I want to get this stuff on. I want these two things unlocked so I can put it on my character. Now, why do I want the increased spell critical and the increased magicka? Because I'm going to be wearing, or the increased health, is because I'm going to be doing light armor. I'm going to make a light armor magicka tank, and once I get it done, I'm going to bring it out and I'm going to show you guys and say, hey, this is my build, and let you guys see it. But yeah, there's a lot of cool things about the guild skills and everything else. In my next video, though, just so you guys know, I am going to be going over craft skills and world skills. The craft skills I'm going to be going through about the passives that you can get from them that will benefit you while you're playing in dungeons or in Cyrodiil and stuff like that. And it'll explain why you want to craft food and potions. And then why you want to craft armor and weapons and everything else, because there's a lot of beneficial things you can get from it. World skills, I'm going to be explaining those, and then of course Alliance War skills. And I will be going through each individual line of those, explaining everything. So unfortunately, guys, that does conclude the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please hit that like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can hit the subscribe button. It's over here on the bottom left, and that would be greatly appreciated as well. But that's it for now, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye.